Welcome into Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. I'm Sahadev Sharma with my partner, Patrick Mooney. We are your Cubs beat writers over at The Athletic. Patrick, Cubs' first homestand is in the books, and their first, injury of the regular season, has popped up. Justin Steele heads to the injured list with left elbow tendonitis. It's a similar injury that he had at the end of last season. And if you want to be optimistic about it, that one was the season was lost at that point, right? They're pretty much out of playoff contention, and he came back in 17 days. Remember, fans were up in arms. How can you do this? What's the point of having Justin Steele pitch?
Right.
Uh, I don't know if they had a point now that he's hurt again, but I don't think it's all connected. It's just the early word is super precautionary. All that stuff, all the positive stuff you want to hear after an injury. I do feel that Craig Counsell is pretty blunt about these things. If he's concerned, he will let you know he's concerned. But MRI Thursday, that's we're recording on a Thursday. The MRI is happening at some point today. That I think is the big step. Getting news on that will make things a little easier to swallow if it is legitimately just tendonitis, all and nothing to be overly concerned about.
Yeah, I have a couple different thoughts. I mean, you were there at Wrigley Field, so you can speak. You already did begin to speak to sort of the atmospherics of how this was announced. I think Cubs fans know that there's almost always the downplaying of the injury.
Yeah.
Like it's almost always precautionary. Steele over the last couple of years has had these sort of relatively smaller issues that he's been able to deal with and come back relatively quickly, but it is just sort of frustrating because this is a guy who said his goal is making 30 plus starts, and if you want to be that true top of the rotation pitcher, I guess it's a kind of an aces project type thing. You have to be out there for those 30 plus. So as a seasoned observer, Sahadev, as you were kind of processing this information and reading everyone's sort of body language and tone and the history, what should the panic level be for Cubs fans?
Yeah, I'm going to any major judgment I have is I want to see what this MRI says. If that comes back clean, there's like right now I reading everything, body language, the way people were talking. If anything, Justin Steele seemed annoyed that he had to go on the IL.
Okay,
that's the way we could have been misinterpreting him, but he didn't seem thrilled to be going on the IL. He came in on this happened on a Wednesday. The announcement happened on a Wednesday. He came in on Tuesday after a brilliant start on Monday, 7 innings. Definitely his best start of the season. Looked like Justin Steele, the Justin Steele we've grown accustomed to over the last few years. And he came in on Tuesday wanting treatment, saying he didn't. It felt, going back, like listening to the sound, he kind of made it seem like it was normal in between start aches and pains, but he did specify some pain, and that's why they said, okay, no, we're not doing this treatment, and you go in 5 days again. Let's be extra cautious. He kept saying they decided to put me on the IL. He said that twice, I believe. So it was it wasn't something where I don't know. It didn't sound like he had like any contentious argument about it, but I don't think he was thrilled about it. These guys want to play. They don't want to go on the IL. If they like to be known as guys that push through these things. I think it seemed to me that Counsell was just like, we're not messing with this. We're going to get him feeling good and out there again. Here's where I would pause on optimism.
Okay.
We have heard this before, right? We've heard this with so many guys last year. We heard of we're hoping for a minimum stint, and then the pain's not going away. Whether it was Ben Brown, whether it was Yetzi Almonte, there's at least one or two others. Granted, he's had this before, and it's been minimum stays, right?
Yeah,
There was
yeah.
forearm in 23, I want to say, an elbow last year. These, you could say those are red flags, or you could say, hey, these are the bumps and bruises that happen during the course of a season, and he'll be fine. So it depends on how you like to react to these things, right?
Yeah. Well, I guess if this news had popped maybe in the second inning of his start in Sacramento, after a couple not very good starts, and the Athletics seemed to be on him, and then to his credit, he righted the ship. And like you said, just had an awesome start his last time out. I think that timing was surprising, but otherwise, what do the Cubs do for now? Is there a next man up? Do they kind of just manage the rotation to where they skip his turn? What are you hearing?
Patrick, you know how forthcoming Greg Counsell is about his plans for the future. He loves to just divulge every scenario that they're considering.
Exactly.
No, someone asked a question about tentative plans. He's like, yes, we have tentative plans. And kind of left it at that. So I followed up with that. When you look at tentative plans, so they have four off days over the next 2 weeks, I believe. I believe that's correct. It's a lot of off days to have. So they have some wiggle room here. And my question was essentially, like, when you look at those tentative plans, if it's a minimum stay, are you just covering one start? And he basically said, like, tentatively, yes. So that's like Sunday or Monday-ish, depending on how they want to do things, how the bullpen goes. He was not giving any hints. The initial move is Ethan Roberts for Justin Steele. Obviously, Ethan Roberts is a reliever. I think maybe you'll hear more information over the weekend. Let's see how first two games go. I think that will tell us a lot. Uh, I think it seems like, to me, Colin Ray makes sense. But if the bullpen gets just completely, overused on Friday and Saturday, do you have to call up Jordan Wicks, right? And so say that happens. I don't think that's like an awful thing to happen either, right? But Jordan Wicks, I believe, is scheduled to start tonight, Thursday night, with Iowa. So who knows? I guess we'll see that today will tell us a lot about their tentative plans, right? If Jordan Wicks starts tonight, then uh, I don't know who you could even call up. I don't think you're not making a 40-man move for this, unless they get bad news on Steele, right? So I think that tells us that should tell us a lot. What happens tonight with Wicks and what happens with the MRI will probably give us a decent amount of information on how they want to handle everything. Patrick, before we talk more about this and get to other things, let's take a quick break and hear from a sponsor.
FT fam, you gotta check out what Harry's brings to the table. And I hope that if you're listening to this, you check out the video version of this conversation at some point, because that razor, Eric Kratz, looks like it stands out for multiple reasons.
I mean, I'll take the cover off. All these blades, each one of them ridiculously sharp, makes for a nice smoothness here and up there.
German engineered blades made in their own factory. They stay sharp longer. Okay. You've got customizable delivery options. Harry stands out for the sharpness, for the pricing, for the variety. And you can get a 5-blade razor, a weighted handle, foaming shave gel, and a travel cover for just $3 at harrys.com/foul. Get the edge on your shave with Harry's. Normally their trial set's $13 right now. You can get it for just $3 at harrys.com/foul. That's our exclusive FT link. harrys.com/foul for a $3 trial set.
Patrick, I don't know if the cold impacted Justin Steele. He wondered if that impacted him. He was like kind of talking about it during the game on Monday. Is this the cold? What's going on? My velocity's down. But he said he was fine and pushed through it and delivered his best start of the season. I think that's like if we ignore the injury for right now, and just talk about that, how good he looked. Like that was a nice little, that was nice to see in the sense that I think we saw this last year. I think people were acting like he'd never had like this home run blip. And I felt like, I feel like there was this home run blip exactly last year. And yes, it happened right when he came back from the hamstring injury. He had like these 3 starts where he gave up more home runs than he ever does. And then he became Justin Steele again. So that was a good sign. Obviously the elbow is the bad outcome. Well, as far as filling these starts, we touched on that. I also think it's huge how everyone else looks, right?
Yeah.
If like Shota Imanaga had a bad start on Wednesday, and we can talk about this the week that was, but the week that was, there was a lot of good starting pitching. Shota Imanaga still a top 10 pitcher by Baseball Reference WAR in the NL. Matthew Boyd is a top 5 pitcher by WAR, according to Baseball Reference. Jameson Taillon had an awful first start against the Diamondbacks, and since then looks like what you'd love to see a third starter on a playoff team look like, frankly. Like he's better at missing bats now. He feels good on the mound. I talked to him about his delivery and everything. He feels like the best he's felt since he's been in the Cubs uniform. So if you want to take some positives away, that they can weather this storm if it's not months long absence, right? You want Justin Steele back. I want to make that clear. I'm not saying like, oh, it's fine. No, you want as many good starting pitchers as possible.
Yeah.
But they can possibly weather the storm. I think the bigger question is like the talent they're facing, right? Like if you're going to have an injury, you almost would have liked it to happen in May when the competition is weaker.
Yeah, I mean, I think this offense is going to have to keep putting tons of runs on the board, because we were just talking off air. The starting pitching the Cubs will be facing coming up, was it Yamamoto, Roki, Glasnow, Cease?
Yeah, I believe that's what it is to start the road trip.
And as we know, I mean, Dodger Stadium is just a tough place to play. It's got this crazy energy, not just, this fantastic collection of talent that they have, but just the way they kind of set the tone there and can kind of dictate the terms is just a really difficult place to play. It feels like we were just there. I mean, I was there in September with the Cubs, and that was I think it was the Tommy Edman show. It was Shohei. It was Seiya getting thrown out at third base. Part of a road trip that then went to Coors Field, which was kind of another nail in the season. So, yeah, I think Matthew Boyd has looked awesome. Obviously, he won't have like a 0 ERA the whole season. I'm more concerned he hasn't pitched a full season, though, since 2019, right? So how is he going to weather it? I don't know. Ben Brown hasn't looked great. Maybe he will. I mean, everyone gets, kind of a grace period and some runway. I think everyone's fine with Shota and Taillon. And so, yeah, this will be a time to see how their pitching depth shows up, because there's going to be some games on this road trip that get out of hand, or where a starter's knocked out early. The bullpen's going to have to do a lot. And so, to me, I know you've always been really optimistic about this offense. I was probably a little more skeptical. I was very impressed. Like, this was like miserable hitting conditions. I believe John Steinmiller, the Cubs PR director, he had it in the notes. He mentioned it to us of how it was actually colder at first pitch at Wrigley than it was for the puck drop at the Winter Classic on New Year's Eve, which gives you a sense of what it was like. And to just like we're up in the press box and the windows are closed, and depending on where you're sitting in there, like it's not that comfortable just like sitting in an enclosed case up there. So imagine playing outside in the elements, and this offense I think has really covered for some bullpen blips, some shaky starting pitching outings, and we all know like offense comes and goes, but I saw a lot there that like I was like, oh, this is what Sahadev's talking about. Like there are a lot of more elements than just Kyle Tucker to this group.
Yeah, no, I like this offense. I've stated that for a while now. I think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty deep. I will say that like days like Wednesday happen. That's baseball. It's not the end of the world. I feel like they've hit Tyler Mahle before, but Tyler Mahle, like once every 3 starts against the Cubs, like looks like an ace for some reason. I don't know. Like it's just when it's part of being a familiar pitcher, right? Like there are these guys that pitch in the NL Central, and every single time we see them so much, it's like, what? This guy doesn't do anything that like blows you away. I'm pretty sure he may have made his big league debut against the Cubs, or one of his first starts was against the Cubs. I remember being like, who is this guy? The first time that you pitch against them, he's carving them up, and it doesn't seem to have anything special, but hey, that's sometimes just pitching. That's just how it works. One quick note I wanted to make about the starting pitching. Counsell was clear he doesn't want to push guys. So like, don't look for like he likes extra days rest. I think I did the math, and of the 11 games, if it's a minimum stint of the 11 games, it would be 4 would be on 4 days rest, which is normal rest. But again, Counsell likes to keep these things like he likes to, if he can, get it 5 days rest. So only 4 of them would be on 4 days rest. So maybe he's fine with that. And he did seem to indicate, like I said, like when I asked, only one, if you can keep it to a minimum, it's 1 start that you have to cover. He seemed to acknowledge that was the case. So we'll see where he goes with that. But yes, the offense I think looks great. Let's talk a little bit more about that. One more quick break right here, Patrick.
Kratz, do you like spending an hour on grocery shopping?
Nope. Speed up the process, please.
Introducing Hungry Root to the FT fam.
Now we can all be bougie with our own personal shopper to handle the food shopping, including Rex, based on what you're looking to put in your body.
I stack my Hungry Root box with items like gluten-free, dairy-free blueberry waffles for breakfast, shrimp veggie bowls for lunch, and a little filet mignon with potatoes and broccolini for dinner.
You can also say just, hey, Hungry Root, I eat paleo, or I'm vegetarian, and they load up your cart with personalized recommendations.
And those recs keep evolving as they learn about what you're into. Also, no BS, as in no artificial sweeteners or preservatives in any of Hungry Root's food. You're going to love Hungry Root as much as FT does. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/FT and use code FT. That's hungryroot.com/FT, code FT to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life.
Patrick, the offense looks great. I'm trying to quickly look up like just how they're doing, and like by WAR, and we know Kyle Tucker's a stud this season. He's one of the leaders in all of baseball. It's basically him and Corbin Carroll. It looks like Seiya Suzuki has shaken off a little bit of a slow start pretty quickly, and he looks like he looks like the player that they kind of wanted him to become, right? Like Counsell has talked about this. What kind of player can Seiya Suzuki be? Yes, he's been very good, but they haven't been shy about saying like, we almost expect a little bit more, right? Like a little bit more consistency. And it looks like he's getting there. It looks like this is obviously it's not even a month into the season, but we've seen stretches like this. Of course, can he keep this up for a whole season? If he does, him and Kyle Tucker are one of the better 1-2 punches in baseball, right? And it just kind of makes everything. I was actually texting earlier with a scout for another team, and he's just like, it's just so interesting to watch. He's like, it's not a one-man sport, but when you have a superstar in the lineup, it sure does make things look a lot better. It's just different, and they have that guy.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, when I wrote that the other day, it was not to downplay Kyle Tucker, because obviously we've written a lot and we'll continue to write a lot about how awesome he is at baseball. And I thought part of that quote was interesting just because he does not carry himself like a superstar in the sense of like, it's not all about him. Like he's polite. He is professional and is dealing with the media, but there's not a whole lot of like love of attention. It does not seem like he very much enjoys. He's not just good at baseball either. Like he seems to enjoy the process and likes talking about it with his teammates, just that he's fit in, but there is a lot of other stuff going on there too. I mean, this had already happened, but Ian Happ as leadoff hitter, that's something that for years we had written about, right? Of like, who's it going to be? What are they going to do? You see that interplay between Seiya and Tucker, and, you know, Counsell is not one to sort of like just give in to any sort of narrative. And he seems kind of skeptical about a lot of these types of ideas, but he full on said, you know, Seiya is learning from Tucker. Like that seems kind of like an easy sort of media narrative that Counsell would like shake his head at and be like, you know, there's only one player in the box at the time or something like that. But he's like, no, they're kind of feeding off each other. And I think, you know, this bench is better. Like if you look back at some of the guys that they've brought in or they've carried over the last couple of seasons, there's guys who either did not have enough major league experience and did not have the foundation to be like a great role player, or there are guys who maybe had big success in the past, but looked kind of cooked by the time they got to Chicago. And that you see, you know, John Birdie's influence. Carson Kelly isn't really a true bench player, but him and Amaya are exactly what you had written about last year in terms of like what they needed. And I mean, this kind of goes into what you wrote about Sahadev, just the idea of, you know, Matt Shaw kind of settling in, and that, you know, as Shaw and Pete Crow Armstrong sort of adjust and continue learning here, they have some pretty good coverage. Like even as they are figuring things out, the Cubs can put 7, 8, 10 runs on the board. Whereas last year, those growing pains were just so obvious, and the lineup was really easy for the other team to sort of go through. That's not really the case right now.
Yeah, those they were so pronounced, right? The third base, catcher, center field issues offensively were just like they were, you know, at times pretty unacceptable, right? You can't like they just couldn't overcome that stuff. It feels like sorry, my Alexa just randomly went off, so I'm very confused. I was like, is someone's in my house? Someone's talking.
Big fan, Alexa. Big fan of the Foul Territory Network.
So you know, and Pete Crow Armstrong isn't even hitting all that well, but he's doing a couple things I think that allow him to impact even on offense. He's taking some walks, so he's getting on base on occasion, and that instantly when he's on base, he's incredibly valuable. So it's almost like you're not noticing that he's actually not hitting that much, and he's just not striking out a ton, which if you're someone that watches that stuff, if he's just putting the ball in play, he'll do a lot. He can help the team eventually, right? You trust that good things will happen with him. He's not chasing. It's not a big mess out there for him. With the Maya and Kelly, like, just completely different mix there, just completely different results than it was last year. And Shaw, I think he's not crushing the ball. But he has been a lot better since Japan.
More competitive,
Yeah, yeah. The bats are more competitive. They're more interesting. There's more there. He seems more confident and comfortable. I don't know if he's gonna rake this year, right? But he has time to kind of settle in and figure things out. Like we've been talking about, this offense looks so different, and so much more consistent, um, that there's no pressure for him to just like, he doesn't need to be the man. And now that he's batting eighth, there's just not much to worry about. I did hear some things about his stance early on, and like, how's this guy gonna hit it? I was kind of curious about it. I wanted to hear how he got there and why he does that, because it is a unique stance, and unique stances are fun, right? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't sound like he's been doing this forever, and he's not even great about explaining like how he got there. He doesn't really. He's just like, it was kind of evolved and like making adjustments. I think the most unique thing is like that, how closed off, like how he's kind of like really compact and standing back in the box, and his front toe kind of points at the catcher. He says that keeps everything connected, it also like reduces the load mechanism for him. He just can kind of go. It made me think like, if you watch Kyle Tucker's swing, it's unconventional. He drops the bat a little bit, like,
Yeah.
and that's not, you wouldn't teach anyone that, but it works for Kyle Tucker, obviously. We'll see if this works for Matt Shaw at the highest level. Right now it is. He says that like the leg kick is something that's supernatural for him. He's always kind of had that, I think, for a long time. He says he doesn't even realize how big it is sometimes, but it hasn't hurt him. It's a purely timing mechanism, and it's just something that, he uses and helps generate power. A lot of these unconventional things, he says, kind of make him feel connected and close together, and it allows him to get off his best swing. I have heard from scouts that wonder if it could cost him in the big leagues. I haven't seen him be like exceptionally late or off time. It's like he's actually had a little bit of bad luck, I feel like. He's hitting the ball. Like, what does Matt Shaw do? Like, Matt Shaw is in the major leagues because he hits the ball hard and he hits it in the air. He has I'm looking it up. He has a 212 BABIP, and he's, he hits the ball hard and in the air. Things should be okay for him in the long run, I think. As long as he doesn't panic and try and overthink things.
Yeah. As long as annoying reporters don't constantly ask him about his mechanics and his swing. But no, I mean, look, I feel like the kind of two big ideas at the beginning of most seasons are like, are you healthy, and did you avoid a bad start? And the Cubs have been largely healthy. I still think kind of coming in and out of Japan, the way this season started, if Steele is a minimum stint, you probably feel pretty good about that. And then to be 9-6 is good in any context starting a season, but against the toughest schedule in baseball, I think to be scoring a ton of runs in just brutal hitting conditions, to kind of begin to form an identity, whether it was the base running you had wrote about, basically the second season of the series, it was apparent by then, to avoid like total bullpen meltdowns. Obviously it's been uncomfortable, and there are certainly some missed opportunities, thinking back to that, 8-run 8th inning against the Diamondbacks, but otherwise, like, pretty orderly, pretty organized. And, a 1-5 road trip to California would certainly change the perception, but that wouldn't be, season ending by any means. So
Right.
we'll have a lot more information off these two series against, big time NL contenders. Should be fun to watch.
Yeah, no, I was about to say, you just don't want the disaster West Coast road trip, right? Like 0-6, 1-5, avoid that. I think you'd even take 2 and 4, to be honest. Like these are two of the best teams in baseball that they're going to be facing. If they split or win this road trip, go above 500 on this road trip, that's huge. Like that I think it'll, for me, I'll start. It's the type of thing that happens. If that happens, you start to say like, how good is this team? How good can they be? Like how resilient are they? They just get bad news about Justin Steele and they go out and do that, right? Let's see. It hasn't happened yet. It's going to be a really tough road trip. I just like I think people need to keep that in perspective. It is not like the pitching that they're facing, the offenses that they're facing. Nothing about this road trip is going to be easy. Just going to the West Coast is hard in general. Like we said, like this, even if they were facing Colorado, it's just weird things happen out there. LA and San Diego, 2 of the best teams in baseball. So we'll see how they go. It's going. What was it? Yamamoto, Roki Sasaki, and Tyler Glass now, and then Dylan Cease in the opener against the Padres. So if that stays how it is, it's going to be a daunting task. We'll see how they handle it. All right, Patrick, we'll be back with one final episode this week, and then back next week in the middle of that road trip. You'll be out there covering things for The Athletic. Thanks, everyone, for listening. This is Northside Territory. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel and subscribe to The Athletic, where Patrick and I are on top of all things Cubs. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Take